goodness, Chris Martin from Coldplay. Uh, I can't believe I get to play Magic the Gathering against you. It's such an honor. I guess we need to decide who goes first. Usually, I like to do a 4 die high roll if you're into that. Okay. Are you sure you want to do 2 dice? That's kind of boring. Maybe like a 5 die high roll for some spice. I mean, are you sure, Chris Martin from Coldplay? Like, we could just. All right, I guess we'll do your thing then. Welcome to the Just Hour podcast. My name is Jan, and with me is none other than Sam, Tournament Grinder Cephalus.
You know, the thing I dread about these podcasts is not setting up the show notes or doing the editing. Mostly because I don't do any of that. It's these intros, but that one killed me.
Well, I had that idea about 2 weeks ago when I heard it over the intercom at work. I'm like, all right, how do I do this? And then, so I I bought the song.
You bought the song.
I bought the song. That's how committed I am. And then,
so we ain't getting no copyright strikes or anything.
hopefully not. We're also hopefully not. We'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I did that all in like behind the scenes, by the way. I asked for like an extra 5 to 10 minutes. That was to download a soundboard so that I could make sure that could be that could work out.
That's
All right.
amazing.
Well, this is episode number 6. This is the Innistrad Crimson Vow card review.
Yeah, and Crimson Vow, it's a really good set, really unique set, and I'm excited to see what it brings for Judge Tower. Which, by the way, people in our city have been playing a lot of Judge Tower.
I keep joking. It's the 3rd most popular constructed format in the city.
It's so true.
It is. Besides Commander and Modern, people love Judge Tower.
And it's great. It's great. Like we've had so much interest at like these weeklies and these tournaments that we're going to for Judge Tower that we had to modify our rule set a little bit so that our starting hand size is now our judge level +1. Just because we have a bunch of uncertified judges or people who don't want to be judges playing, and starting with a bunch of people starting without a card, not so fun. So to make up for that, now I get to start with 3 cards.
Yeah. pain for you. It's just the hits keep on coming.
Yep.
All right. So Crimson Vow. Yeah, it brought a lot of old stuff and a lot of new stuff to the table. Let's start with one of the not the main mechanics, but a cycle of cards. The cemetery cycle, quote unquote. It's 5 mythics, 1 of each color. Here's the fun part about this cycle, right? They exile cards from graveyards, but like they don't always have the same condition when they do it. So, for example, some of them they enter the battlefield, then they exile a card. Some of them on attack. Some of them when they like die.
Some of them on ETB and attack, right? Like Cemetery Illuminator, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a pain to be honest, but I mean
that's perfect.
That's perfect.
That works out. Yeah.
That's perfect for the format. So we'll discuss all 5 of them. Maybe we'll do it in bottom up order. So the least interesting, working our way up to the most interesting cards to include. So we'll start off with Cemetery Prowler. This is the green one. 1 green for a 3/4 wolf with vigilance. So what's the downside? There is none. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. And then it has spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card type they share with cards. exiled with Cemetery Prowler.
So it's not amazing in Judge Tower. Like I will die to vigilance almost every time. The thing with this in Judge Tower specifically is we're not really thinking about costs until someone asks you, and then when you get asked how much your spell costs, you start to kind of realize something's up, and you look at your board. So and then you'll figure it out. So this is why we have it fifth out of the cycle for Judge Tower. Just doesn't do a whole lot in this particular format. Good card,
No,
but
great card. Throw it in all your Werewolf Commander deck. Singular, because there's only one
singular.
commander for it. Yeah.
Is there
Next
only
up.
one?
Oh well, they have Tovalar,
Yeah.
the red green one, and
Yeah.
then they have like terrible support for commander,
Mm,
and they didn't print a commander product for werewolves because logistics.
that surprises me. Yeah.
Yeah, people like it, but also it turns out that it's very difficult to make a whole lot of werewolves. This ain't commander cast.
It's not.
No.
Next up on our list, we have Cemetery Desecrator, the black one in the cycle. It is 4 black black for a 4/4. Bad rate. Menace. When it ETBs or dies, exile another card from a graveyard. When you do, reflexive trigger.
Hmm.
Choose one. Remove X counters from target permanent, where X is the mana value of the exiled card. Or target creature an opponent controls gets minus X, where X is the mana value of the exiled card. So notably, this one, I believe all 4 of the other ones, I could be wrong, care about the type of card, or like care about the exiled card for more than just a one-shot effect. So
Correct.
so this
Yes.
one's unique in that it can exile multiple cards, but the reflexive trigger is linked to well the trigger it originates from, and the card that was exiled will only be relevant once.
And the effect you get from the reflexive trigger is just bad for the format. Like it does more things than the Cemetery Prowler, which is why it's above it. But like removing creatures isn't really the thing you want to do most of the time because most of the creatures in Judge Tower are geared towards getting your opponent, or I suppose sometimes the creature is trying to get you so you can kill it, but just straight up removal is not really the primary goal of cards in Judge Tower.
Yep.
Um, I suppose removing X counters from a permanent without counters on it is kind of interesting. That is a thing
Yeah.
you can do.
Like this card will get someone, but it's not amazing in the format.
Yeah,
We move on to Cemetery Gatekeeper, the red one in the cycle. We have this strictly in the middle. I think this card's sick.
it
Uh,
is sick. Yes.
so it's a 1 in a red, 2/1 with first strike. Good rate. When it ETBs, you exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever a player plays a land or casts a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, Cemetery Gatekeeper deals 2 damage to that player.
See, now this is what we're talking about here. The
Yeah, this
next
is
three are
yeah.
fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Like it's a trigger that cares about types, so you always have to pay attention to any card or land that anyone plays. Very rare to exile a land, but when it does, that's value.
Mhm.
And it has a very impactful, like it does something, unlike say the Prowler.
Players cast a lot of spells in Judge Tower, turns out.
It's
Uh,
true. It's true.
so you chain creatures into instants into sorceries, and as the controller of the gatekeeper, you kind of have to. I mean, you gotta pay attention, right? It's like Eidolon of the Great Revel,
It's true.
similar, but with more steps because now you have an exiled card that's linked to it. I don't want to use the linked means something a bit different in Magic, but the
Associated.
associated, yes,
Associated.
yes, yes,
Honestly, this could have been number two. They're kind of tied.
it's close.
With Cemetery Protector, 2 white for a 3/4 human soldier with flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. And whenever you play a land or cast a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, create a 1/1 white human creature token. Basically, flash is like it is the same effect as the gatekeeper almost.
Mhm.
The difference is it only triggers on your spells, but it also
Yeah,
has flash.
so it's kind of like the opposite. Having flash is real good in Judge Tower, but it's kind of like the opposite effect from Gatekeeper in that now it triggers off of only your stuff. Won't talk too much more about it because again, like we basically covered everything talking about the Gatekeeper. I also am really excited to get to this last one because
Mm,
this one
this
goes
one
hard.
is this one is a clear number one.
Yeah,
Like Cemetery Illuminator, one blue blue for a 2/3 spirit with flying. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. Once each turn, you may cast a spell from the top of your library if it shares a card type with a card exiled with Cemetery Illuminator.
yeah. I love everything about this card for every sort of format. It makes really weird situations like Fibblethip the Lost, I believe.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
yes, yes.
Judged an event over the weekend where someone actually a modern event where someone was playing this card and asked me if they could evoke from the top of the library.
Ooh, you
You
can, right?
can. You can, yes.
Yeah.
Evoke is not specific to the hand like Fuse or something.
Okay.
But it makes for a lot of not so obvious interactions, especially once you start getting into adventures.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no. So many adventures are really good. Judge Tower too.
Yes.
Like you
Yes,
have
they are.
Giant Killer and you have Queen of Ice. Two pretty good creatures with adventure on them. Actually, I'm
Yes.
kind of curious. If you exile an instant, say, can you cast Chop Down from the top?
Yes, you can.
But you cannot cast Giant Killer from the top.
Correct. Unless you've also exiled a creature, but assuming you've only exiled an instant, you can cast Chop Down or Petty Theft, but you
Hmm.
cannot cast Giant Killer or Brazen Borrower.
Okay, okay. And look at all these riders. Once each turn? Like
Yeah.
imagine you exiled an instant with this.
Yeah.
Like you have to do it on their upkeep if you like cast an instant off the top.
Yep.
This is gonna get people.
And whenever they draw a card or whenever cards get drawn or removed from the top of the library, you gotta check again, and it's
Oh
like a
man.
Melic effect, but it's just a bit more complicated.
It's just so specific. I love it.
It's so good.
Yeah. If you're gonna pick one up, get this one. Cemetery Illuminator. Very good. Um Next up, a mechanic that we didn't talk about in in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, it's Disturb. There was kind of a reason for it.
So disturb all the disturb effects, most I should say of the disturb effects in Midnight Hunt, like having stuff in the graveyard that does stuff is generally pretty good in Judge Tower, but nothing stood out as better than just a random flashback spell, for example, for Judge Tower specifically. But in this set, we have the auras. They disturb as auras.
Yes. So instead of always just like casting or disturbing the card as a creature, because it's basically always castable, you have some sort of restriction with these disturb cards. And also the exiling or the effect where if it gets put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. That's a pretty neat line of text.
It's real, and the disturb creatures have it too. But
Yeah, but like if it gets countered on stack, you exile it,
yes,
and
what
that'll
if it
get
gets
someone once.
what if it gets remanded?
Then it goes back to your hand as the front side of the creature, because it's not going to a graveyard.
Right.
It's going back to your
Okay.
hand.
I was trying to be a bit too cute there. I was thinking about a flashback.
Oh, I see, I see. Yeah, actually, yeah. Flashback. It does just get exiled, right?
Yes.
Like you don't get value from that.
No. No, the remand player does.
Oh, sure, for sure. Um, and there are two really nice disturb cards. I think the first one is Catilda Donhart Martyr. Spoiler alert: she dies. One white white for a star legendary spirit warlock with flying, lifelink, and protection from vampires.
Gas.
Uh yeah. That line of text will get people for sure. Protection from vampires. That's very random. Catilda, Donhart, Martyr's power and toughness are each equal to the number of permanents you control that are spirits and or enchantments. So if you have an enchantment spirit creature, those exist.
I've seen
It,
weirder things happen.
yeah, but maybe you play with some Theros Bestow cards or something like that. I don't know. But if you have one of those, it'll only count one towards it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then it has Disturb, 3 white white. You may cast this from your graveyard transformed for its Disturb cost. And it on the backside it's Catilda's Rising Dawn. A legendary enchantment aura. Enchants a creature. Enchanted creature has flying, lifelink, and protection from vampires, and it gets plus X, where X is the number of permanents you control that are spirits and or enchantments. And if this would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead.
It's basically the same effect on the front, but again, it comes back as an aura, and if there's nothing to enchant, then it just enters the battlefield. Or no, you won't be able to cast it because that's how Disturb works, right?
Yes, you need
Yeah,
a target.
you will need a target. Yes,
But man, look at all that word soup.
it's a lot of words on it. The Rising Dong.
Sure is. But like,
Uh,
yeah, lifelink, flying, protection from vampires. That's a lot to keep track.
yep.
Someone will make a mistake with this card.
Yeah. We also have Mirror Hall Mimic, the obligatory 3 and a blue clone this set. It is a 0/0 spirit. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield. Except it's a spirit in addition to its other types. It disturbs for 3 blue. It's an enchantment aura on the backside with a triggered ability that reads at the beginning of your upkeep, create a token copy that's or a token that's a copy of enchanted creature, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types. This one's great. If you end up having to put it on like some obnoxious creature, just kind of gets you. It also has the default line of text where if it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead.
Yeah, and I'm a bad influence on people. Turns out. So when I play Judge Tower, I do it for value.
Yes.
Um, and people have started to do the same. So hopefully we get insane amounts of value from this card. Like you could get like, I don't know, some nice ETB effect, like say Cemetery Illuminator.
Oh yeah. Oh
Oh
oh,
yeah, there we
because
go.
then you got to keep track. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that there we go. That's a wombo combo right there.
That's Splinter Twin.
It's Splinter Twin.
Yeah.
We've done it.
Uh, One more Disturb card. I know we said two, but we lied.
Ooh,
Uh, Radiant Grace is on the front side. It's an aura. It's a single white enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has vigilance. Sorry, this one doesn't actually have Disturb.
it doesn't. You
It
lied.
does
Got
not.
him.
I did lie again. Uh,
Let's get the Sharpie of shame.
yeah. This one transforms from a triggered ability. When enchanted creature dies, return it to the battlefield transformed under your control, attached to target opponent. On the backside, it reads Enchant Player. Creatures Enchanted Player controls enter the battlefield tapped. Blind obedience effects are just so good.
Yeah, and this one specifically targets one player, so
Yes.
it's less annoying than a blind obedience, and but still provides that kind of effect where people
Hmm.
need to pay attention.
Yeah.
So yeah, less headaches.
We talked a little bit about this earlier today, Jan, and say I am the one who controls the Radiant Restraints, which is the backside of this card, and
Hmm.
I target you,
Yeah,
and you put a creature into play untapped, and me as the controller of Radiant Restraints, one of two things happens: I notice it, or someone notices it immediately, and then you lose, or I don't notice it, and someone else points it out. Typically, the way we would play is that only you would lose, but I've been doing some thinking,
dangerous.
dangerous in that when effects like this happen, both players should lose because at competitive, if this comes up, I'm the one who controls the radiant restraints, but you're the one who did the thing. We would both get a game rules violation if went unnoticed. So why is it now different in Judge Tower? So
It adheres more to policy, which is a good thing, honestly, because Judge Tower teaching rules is nice, but if you get some extra value of it, then
yeah,
that's also a plus.
it
So
it just mirrors the like just the way we kind of look at policy. Like if we're so focused on game rules, why is there a situation where someone at competitive can get a game rules violation that wouldn't cause them to lose in Judge Tower, right?
True, true. So would you mark this with 2 or 1?
Probably two because it's funny.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fair.
it's good
Yeah,
value.
it's great value. 2 kills in 1.
Yes.
Not bad.
One of my favorite type of effects, we have Sigarda's Summons, another Crimson Vow card. It's a white rare, so you already know it's going to be bad. Uh, 4 white enchantment. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have base power and toughness 4/4, have flying, and are angels in addition to their other types. So now we're interacting in layer 7 twice, because or we have to know how like counters interact with base power and all that favorably is the answer.
Yes.
It's just annoying to track, and it's great.
It's so specific, right?
It's
Like,
it is.
and +1/+1 counters are not rare. They are quite common, and if you have this on your board, it's very easy to miss this kind of thing. Or suddenly, because of say like a Zemek Guild Mage, you suddenly have a I guess 5/5 Angel with flying, and it also screws up like combat for your opponents if you attack with your
Yep.
angels into them. It's just a lot to like about this card.
Mhm. Next up, we have our obligatory big blue, conditionally unblockable dork.
Well, this one's not. Oh, it is. It is conditionally unblockable.
Yes.
Yo, I'm dumb.
Dreadlight Monstrosity. It's a 4 blue creature crab horror, a 5/5 with ward 2, and an activated ability of 3 blue. Dreadlight Monstrosity can't be blocked this turn, and you can activate this only if you own a card in exile.
I think it's worth going over what exactly owning means in Judge Tower. When you own a card, typically it's a card you have drawn or played from the shared library.
Introduced to the game. Yeah.
Yes, introduced to the game. So say you have a shared graveyard, but you technically own different cards. So like let's say a treasure cruise has delved the graveyard and the cards go to exiled. If you own a card in the graveyard, you will then own that card in exile,
Yeah.
which lets you activate the ability, which is very specific.
It is, and if it gets like different judge towers can have different rules or different ways of kind of interpreting the ownership of a card, but the for the way we play it, this card, even without like even say everyone just owns everything unless they're like in your hand or in play or something, this card's still really good.
And it has
War
ward.
It has wards, yes. Activated a bit like at its very core, it's an activated ability that has a very weird condition.
Very uncommon. It's kind of like a torrent elemental kind of effect.
Sorry, this card's actually a common, not an
It is a
uncommon.
common, so
Right,
pick one up for literally a penny. Probably not actually, but
of
just
course.
just search your draft chaff. It'll probably be there.
Another good one here, Patchwork Crawler, 1 and a blue, 1/2, creature zombie horror. Has an activated ability of 2 and a blue. Exile target creature card from your graveyard and put a +1/+1 counter on Patchwork Crawler. Synergizes with Sigarda Summons. Uh, Patchwork
Oh
Crawler has
god!
all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with it.
First off, let's look at the art. I don't want
Um,
this to be an angel.
wait.
I don't want this to be an angel. Let's look at it.
Uh,
Catch these hands. There's so many hands.
so many hands.
So many. Second, it's kind of a mini necrotic ooze,
Yeah.
and that's not nothing. It can kind of get confusing if cards with activate abilities reference themselves. People might not know that when a card references themselves, it's like this card. So Patchwork Crawler will be able to use that ability,
Yeah.
but it won't be able to use abilities that are linked to other effects. So I can't really think of one. Technically, this is a linked ability, right?
I believe it would be. My understanding of linked abilities is like Karn Liberated, for example. Its ultimate is linked with its other two abilities.
I see.
That's what I understand linked abilities to be.
Yeah. So I can't think of any.
Associated once again.
As-
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of anything, but I'm sure it'll come up with uh, some card at some point. Next up, we have Fel Stinger, 2 and a black for a 3/2 zombie scorpion with Death Touch, and Exploit. Exploit is when this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. And when Fel Stinger exploits a creature, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life.
Yeah.
Yeah, exploit's interesting. We didn't really cover it in the mechanics, because it's kind of self-explanatory. But there are some neat, like, kind of weird things about exploit, where if you say kill the Fel Stinger with the exploit trigger on the stack, and then you sacrifice a creature, you won't get the effect because the Fel Stinger is not on the battlefield anymore. And you can exploit Fel Stinger to itself to trigger the draw 2 and lose 2. So those are kind of like some things you need to know about exploit. But other than that, it's just nice value. You get to give someone 2 cards, which is always fun in Judge Tower. You give them fuel to kill themselves, or you just draw 2 cards yourself because you want the value.
You think you know a person, and I was fully 100% expecting you to describe Felstinger, the Pokemon move.
uh, okay, Felstinger is
Yeah,
a bug type move.
sure.
It's like 20 base power, I think. Hold on.
Close.
Is it 30?
In Gen 6, it's 30. In Gen 7 and onward, it got buffed to 50.
Okay, it got relevant. I didn't know that.
Yes.
I stopped playing after like Gen 7 a little bit. I'm trying to get back into the new Brilliant Diamond, and I just keep
Yeah.
forgetting about it because I just don't have time. Maybe in the future. Anyway,
Absolutely. Uh, so we now have Curse of Hospitality. This card is
oh
a 2 and a red enchantment aura curse. Creatures attacking Enchanted Player have trample. It also has a triggered ability. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to Enchanted Player, that player exiles the top card of their library until end of turn. That creature's controller may play that card, and they may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. So this card's great. Uh, the creatures attacking Enchanted Player having trample. That's on the creature's controller to remember, unless
yes,
both players miss it. But it is the responsibility of that player to remember. But the trigger is only the controller of the curse's responsibility to remember. So you have a bit of contradiction there. Also, the effect is just value.
it's sweet value.
Yeah,
Uh, Reminder: colorless is not a color.
that's correct.
Just keep that in mind.
Yes.
Also, I definitely didn't say the name of the card. In tune with Cult of Personality, the Curse of Hospitality,
um,
and then a
riveting
sweet
DMC,
guitar
right?
riff. Uh,
Yeah.
we are super getting DMC. This is my fault. Oh my goodness, I didn't even think about that.
If we want to go even
Uh,
further, laid to rest the music song by Lamb of God. That's another good
yep.
one. In Magic, though, laid to rest is a 3 and a green enchantment. Whenever a human you control dies, draw a card. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, you gain 2 life. Man, so much synergy.
Just a lot of synergy. Like,
Uh,
it's all so specific,
yeah,
right?
and what's really neat is it's not uncommon for human creatures specifically to care about having or to just have 1/1 counters on them. Like we look at
True.
cards like Thalia's Lieutenant, which should probably be in the tower.
It actually should.
It
I should
should
point
be,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
this it'll trigger both triggers on this. Then you have to stack them and do all that.
You know what is uncommon though? This card. Next. Next
Touche.
up. Yeah. Next up, Wolf Strike. 2 and a green for an instant at common. Target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. If it's night, then it deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control.
Just a weird
That
card.
it's so weird.
It's one of those cards where like the effect isn't very complicated as far as magic rules are concerned, but it's similar to Dead Ringers, which is a sorcery that reads destroy target not two target non-black creatures unless one of them is a color the other isn't. So it's similar to that card in that you just kind of have to read it a whole bunch to figure out what exactly it's doing.
Yeah, it's at its worst, it's a bite,
Yeah.
but like you have to just finish reading the card. Like the hidden second target at the end of the card is
Yes.
just gets you out of nowhere. What also can get you out of nowhere is Ancient Lumberknot.
Great
This is
name,
a
by the way.
great name. Yep. 2 black green for a 1/4 tree folk. Checking the card does not have reach, even though it's green. That's crazy.
That's wild.
Each creature you control with toughness greater than its power assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power.
Classic.
Classic.
Just lots of words that sometimes do stuff.
Yeah, this butt damage is really putting in work. And
Where's-
sometimes people don't know that damage does not reduce toughness. So
Yes.
that's an important thing to note about the card.
Yeah, I blame Arena.
Yeah. So apparently there are some bugs on Arena. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Where like sometimes it changes the something about like it shows the power being like, let's say for this card it shows the power being 4, but it's not.
Oh,
And it's like you let's say you wolf strike this ancient lumber knot if it's night
yeah.
and you think it's 6 power going into a creature, but JK it's 3.
Yeah, that's not great.
Nope. This
No, bugs are never great.
I
Similar
don't know
to
if they fixed it, but
similar to
maybe.
bugs though, we have frogs. Uh,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
what a
Pause.
sec.
Pause.
Pause.
What the hell? Do frogs and bugs have anything to do with each other?
Well, they're both related to Magic the Gathering. So we have Grolnok the Omnivore,
Okay.
two green blue legendary creature. Frog. Uh, 3/3. Whenever a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards.
Oh.
Whenever a permanent card is put into your graveyard from your library, exile it with a croak counter on it. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards you own in exile with croak counters on them. So you would own all the cards that Grolnok exiled while it was under your control, and then if someone else took the Grolnok, they wouldn't have access to your croaky cards. This card has a lot, like it just does a lot on its own, and it's a lot to kind of keep track of.
Ever wonder how many frogs there are in Magic?
Probably like I can think of.
I
Uh,
can think of the Gitrog monster
yes,
is a frog.
I
Wow, there are
know.
a lot of frogs. Holy. Oh, all the Anurids from like all the old sets became frogs. I didn't know that.
Oh
But they look
wow,
pretty froggy, so that makes
yeah,
sense. More frogs than I thought there were, to be honest.
absolutely.
Also changelings.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
oh, and Yargle.
Oh,
Can't
of
forget
course.
Yargle. Yeah.
Never can forget about Yargle.
How come I don't have Yargle in the tower?
Was I have one in mind? If when I ever get around to finding my judge tower.
Yeah. This man just lost the Judge Tower. Like,
Listen,
actually.
it had been like what 2 years since I've had to worry about where it was,
It's
and
true. If you want more frogs in your Judge Tower, actually, there are a couple of good ones, or decent ones, I guess. You have the Croconura, the 1/3 for 3, with Reach and Evolve. Evolve is always a nice trigger. It's good with some other cards. And then Leapfrog, 3/1 for 3, gets flying as long as you cast an instant or sorcery. So,
yeah,
if you want to increase the frog density of your Judge Tower. There's some cards.
Leapfrog is especially good if you're missing the Leapfrogger meta in Battlegrounds, Hearthstone Battlegrounds.
Yes, because they do the exact same thing.
Close. Uh,
Not even.
no.
Oh, you know what? I'm seeing a card that I missed on first glance that actually looks really good here.
Uh,
Aerith, Tormented Prophet, 1 blue red for a 2/4 human wizard, legendary. If you would draw a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library instead. You may play those cards this turn.
oh yes, I played with this card in a pre-release.
Yeah. Thought reflection on a body, very
Yes.
nice. Talks about playing the cards, so you can play lands. One per turn. Just a reminder for some people who play 2 lands in a single turn. I'm not calling anyone out. So, I believe that brings us to the end of the cards that we have. I'm sure there are more. I'm sure we've missed some. Like you
I
can
do.
take a look.
Yeah, take a look at this. Take a look at the set. There's always some pretty much everything is fine. We just wanted to pick the ones that stood out the most. I do have some Magic Judge trivia for you though, Jan.
Oh, go ahead,
Uh,
Sam.
Aerith, the last card we
Hmm.
just talked about,
Yes.
in a regular constructed format
Hmm.
or limited, I suppose. Can you die to an empty library with when you have this card in play?
You can't because it replaces the draw.
Yes. So
Which is different from Dredge.
this tripped me up a little bit. Well, Dredge specifically, you need to be able to meet the condition.
Yes.
This tripped me up a little bit because I was thinking about Narset Parter Avails, which reads each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn.
Oh.
Um, so that's the effect I had in my mind. In that, when what I thought was that you can't replace an action that you couldn't do, uh, which
Oh.
is sort of true, but there's specifically a CR citation 614.11 that may have changed with every time they update the comprehensive rules. Sometimes the citations change. Some effects replace card draws. These effects are applied even if no cards could be drawn, because there are no cards in the affected player's library.
Okay. So trying to draw from an empty library is different from not being able to do it at all.
Yes.
So keep that in mind if you are playing this. Actually, no. Narset's Judge Tower playable. If you're
Oh
playing
yeah.
Judge Tower and you draw for turn and there's a Narset on board and you play an Aerith and then you play deep analysis targeting yourself, you will not exile any cards because you could
Correct.
not draw the cards in the first place because of Narset, and the replacement effect doesn't happen.
That's correct. Yeah. But if you haven't drawn, like if you've had Aerith in place since the start of your turn, you can keep going with
Yes.
Aerith until you would actually draw a card.
Yeah.
Really, Narset, heck of a card.
Heck of a card. Narset Parter Avails. Get one, put in your Judge Tower. Get the English version. Don't be weird.
Yes. Don't be weird.
Um, don't be weird. Don't put foreign cards in your Judge Tower. Judge Tower's for learning. All right.
No.
Maybe if you want like the ultimate degeneracy, throw in make a new Judge Tower with like your foreign cards and your textless cryptic command. But if you want to play it with people that you don't know or people that are kind of learning, just use English cards. Don't be that guy. So, in conclusion, Crimson Vow, heck of a set.
Yeah.
Lots of good cards to include here. We didn't focus on the day night stuff as much because
Yeah, we covered that. Yeah, we covered that last time.
yeah, we got our fill. And they're really pushing the creative envelope with some of these cards. I really
Yes.
like the cemetery cycle here.
Yeah, me too.
Something you haven't seen much. So that wraps that up. So for anyone in the know, we're recording this on December 9th, 2021, right before the end of year judge conference.
Yeah.
And Mr. Sam here
Yeah.
somehow got roped into doing a presentation.
And I wonder what I'll be presenting.
Hmm.
I
Triggers? IPG stuff?
uh, those were my first two options, but the end of year conference is more laid back, sort of unique, interesting concepts that aren't typically at judge conferences. So I decided to go with Judge Tower.
Yeah.
So I believe I will be recording that presentation, and I will pop it in the comments on the YouTube edition of this podcast.
Yeah.
Um,
Could even
uh,
upload it even,
yeah,
honestly.
I could upload it.
Meh.
It won't be anything that hasn't been said yet on this podcast, but it'll be fun. It'll be a different environment. You'll be able to potentially hear people asking questions if I'm allowed to record it. Yeah,
Yeah,
this episode will come out after that presentation, so
most likely.
we'll try and
I'm
make it work.
Yeah, most likely it will. I'm not that quick at editing, turns out, but it's a lot to edit. This is our longest episode yet, so
Oh,
no, I'm excited. You
yeah.
know, I'm excited. I'm excited that our episodes are packed full of content and whatever the heck the intro was at the start. That was wild.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening. If you wanna reach out, we're on Twitter at Judge Towercast. If you want to see Humble Greek stream, some most of the time he's not, but if he does,
True.
twitch.tv/Humble Greek. And feel free to reach out with any questions or any comments. If you want links to our judge towers, they're going to be in the description or notes or whatever. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. So Sam,
Yeah.
face to face, Montreal was a thing.
Montreal. It was a thing.
Mm. And
Face Face
Calgary.
Calgary was also a thing. Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any good stories that you could tell at the in the sign off for the podcast here?
Well, I do want to start by saying face to face Calgary, my focus was mostly on shadowing a judge who was very proficient with Event Link, which, from a player perspective, that is the companion app. I had some concerns and some worries about it, but I do think that the benefits strongly outweigh the cons, and the cons are mostly we're pretty limited in being able to manually pair stuff, which means it'll be more common to have full round repairs when something goes wrong. But I think having players immediately start heading to their seats as soon as we hit the button without having to go crowd around a pairings board, it's all great. The digital reporting, like everything, I think it just makes the event run so much smoother.
It's true. I'm speaking more from a player perspective than a judge perspective here. The only gripes I have with the companion as a player is not including time in the round on the app.
They're working on
That's
it.
kind of they are
It's
working on it.
coming. It's coming. That's one
it.
of the
It's
features that they have told us is coming.
it's a complaint, but like sometimes you just want to know, right? Also, I don't like the life tracking on it. I'd rather use
Yeah.
paper.
Yes.
But
So, one thing that is interesting though is that I was playing at Face to Face Montreal the weekend after Calgary, and the head judge there had mentioned, and I don't know if this is officially in policy yet or not. I haven't personally checked. The head judge said that electronic devices should not be used, of course, with the exception of accessing the companion app throughout the match. Now, the companion app has a card search feature,
mhm.
so I wonder if we're going to be seeing more and more players look up Oracle text themselves because that's something you have access to. That is information you have access to at your disposal at any time by just calling a judge, typically, or if someone has printouts. So I wonder if players will start, or if they're able to, even within policy, look up the Oracle text themselves through the companion.
I believe so. Like it's one of the things I feel worst about calling a judge over. It's like, yeah, it feels bad being like, I just want Oracle text on this card.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be rude to my opponent because they're playing with the foreign card, and that's fine. They can play with the card. Um,
Well,
but
it's not always just foreign. Like some cards have been eroded. Like a lot of older, no, oh God, saying older makes me die a little inside. But The older templating on like damage spells,
Mhm.
some of them can now target planeswalkers, some of them can't. So it's nice
Yeah,
to know.
yeah. I just don't want to come across as rude to the person because I'm like, yeah, I don't believe you. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that's not the goal. I
Yep.
just want the oracle text, right?
hmm Like your opponent isn't expected to have your best interest in mind, so it's always best to call a judge in those situations.
Yes, for sure. And also, Sam top aided
Top
with
four, yeah, yeah.
top forward,
I did in
even better.
fact do that. I had not lost a single game up until the top eight, playing very fair and interactive deck. Um,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
uh,
Very fair,
yeah,
interactive.
Goblin
Goblin
Charbelcher. Yeah,
Charbelcher. Goblin Charbelcher interacting with the opponent's face is very
yes,
fair.
yeah. Hey, I did have to Goblin Charbelcher a creature at one point. Can't remember which one, but uh,
Really?
oh, it was Eidolon of the or Aegis of it was an enchantment creature that gave,
Oh,
yeah, an enchantment creature that
yeah.
gave them hexproof. So I had to throw the Belcher targeting that, and then I got to stack my deck, which is not usually the way that Belcher stacks their deck, but it was funny. I believe it's Aegis of the Gods.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
And wow, it's not even a spirit. I was about to be like, we finally found the enchantment spirit, but nope, no, get wrecked me. That's how it be.
So yeah, tournament was great. Ran real smooth. We had announcements in both English and French, which I was thankful for, being a non-French speaker in a predominantly French province city as well. Most every opponent I had, even if their English wasn't the best, we tried our best to communicate with each other. I did receive a game loss on the Saturday. Like I played both days. I went 4-3 on the Saturday, then came top four on the Sunday. I received a game loss, which it was weird being on the receiving end of one for once. I don't play very much competitive Magic. I play a lot of Magic, but I often end up judging these bigger events. So I received a game loss for a deck problem. We got mid round deck checked 8 minutes into the round because I was playing Belcher. And prior to getting deck checked and presenting to my opponent and all that, I sideboarded and then I counted my sideboard and counted 14 cards. Thought that was a little bit weird because I was referencing a sideboard guide for the event. And I took one card out, bringing my sideboard up to 15 cards. Not remembering that I had a companion that was face up on the table, which was my
Oh.
16th sideboard card. So that ends up being a deck problem that gets upgraded because it was discovered during a deck check to a game loss. So that hurt my tournament that day quite a bit, but it was my own mistake, and I'll never fault the judge for following policy, right?
Yeah, I would never make that mistake. I play perfect Magic the Gathering.
uh,
I would never do something like cast a Fury, instant speed, ephemerate it, and then block a Bogle with it.
oh
That's
no.
not something I would do.
Spoiler alert, he's done that.
I felt super bad about it. It was the worst mistake I've made at a tournament for sure.